Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, she's gone. She was here and she left. Wow, that shows you you gotta do it when the iron strike when the iron's hot. Okay. So we're recording now. Start the video because I am gonna lecture today. So we'll do that. So today we are going over this PowerPoint here. Oh wait, that's the wrong day. That's tomorrow. No, I don't want to do that. Just go. Okay. Because today is day 7. All right. Do y'all like the days? I'm just putting it day 7, day 8, day 9. Does that work? And it's and then it's showing each day. So I think we're good. Nick Trotta is in. Welcome, Nick, wherever you're at. So we're going over 1.02 PowerPoint. It's going to be pretty quick. That's all I have for us to do today. Because I don't want to go too fast through everything. At the same time, I don't want to slow us down. Nick, can you see that, what I'm showing right now? This PowerPoint on the screen share? Nick? Where's the chat? There's the chat. Go back. You go away when I want you. That's how it works. Yes. Cool. You can see the PowerPoint like through screen share, right? Not just through the camera.
Yeah, I can see it.
Cool. Oh, you actually can talk. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, he's never talking again for the rest of the class. All right, so we are going over today. I'm going to throw this thing back up here now. We are going over the court system and trial procedures. And with that, we have a cool thing we're going to be doing in the next couple of days. I guess I'll go ahead and unveil it to the people who are here or online. Basically, you're going to find a court case in a Disney movie. So you'll have to go find some kind of Disney movie and see if you could sue someone in it. You're on your way to being a great lawyer if you can find a lawsuit in a Disney movie. So, oh, there she is. She's back. Catherine's back. All right. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes to go over some things. Trying to think of something fun to talk about while we wait. That's business law related. Has anyone seen any interesting court cases pop up? Anything they want to bring up? Anything cool? No. There's been some people who have they had the death penalty and it was overturned in California. Anybody know who that was? Do I know? I'm not 100% sure. I meant to look more into that, but I know it's a pretty big court case. It was the Scott Peterson guy. He killed his wife, and I think his unborn child or small child, either way. But he was sentenced to death penalty, and this was a little while back. And now he's actually going to not have the death penalty. So we might look at that after we do these notes because they're not going to take that long. And that's all I have to do today because I didn't want to start anything new really today besides these notes. But yeah, he basically was. It was a big court trial. There was another one that's similar to this kind of. It was one of those big in the media. It was down in Florida. Anyone remember that one? It was a woman. She possibly killed her daughter. Her name was Casey Anthony. Y'all remember that? Y'all might have been a little too young for that. I don't know. But it's another one of those. We haven't had a big court case like that in a while. Kind of like the O.J. Simpson trial, things like that. These things happened kind of when y'all were probably elementary school. So there might be, I think there already is a movie on the Scott Peterson guy, but there'll probably one day be a movie. There's always, Netflix series like the O.J. Simpson trials and things like that. These are always big. They're not really like landmark court cases. They're just, I don't know how to explain it. They're really pumped up in the media for some reason. They always, O.J. Simpson kind of made sense because he was a celebrity already, and he went to court. These other ones, they're not really celebrities, but, They basically are people trying to get away with murder, and it's something the whole kind of country comes together and wants to, justice for whoever was murdered. And a lot of times it turns out that the suspects are usually someone close to the person who was murdered. So, but they're very interesting court cases. We can look up a few of them if y'all are interested, just because we are going through the trial procedures today. So, and I assume if you're taking business law, you're kind of interested in court cases. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get started. I think this is the only two people we're going to have in the Zoom meeting. So we're just going to move forward with that now. Or not. There we go. So the U.S. Supreme Court has both original and appellate jurisdiction, so they can make basically decisions based off of the original content, or they can appeal things, which we've talked about. The U.S. Court of Appeals has appellate jurisdiction over the district courts, and the district courts are the lowest level of federal court with general jurisdiction. U.S. district courts have original jurisdiction over most federal court cases. So this is where you're going to usually start off with. If you're starting a court case at the federal level, you're starting district. If it's a thing about legislature or something the president's doing, it might start off in the Supreme Court because it needs to be heard there. For instance, an impeachment case would be heard in the Supreme Court if it could get past the Senate and the Congress, or all of Congress. So moving forward from there, this is North Carolina state courts. This is how they work. You've got your NC Supreme Court, very similar to the United States Supreme Court. It's the highest court and questions the law. You've got NC Court of Appeal, immediate appellate court that decides only questions of law. And then you've got your NC Superior Court, made up of two divisions, Superior and District Court. And we're going to talk about each of those here momentarily and what the difference between those are. All right, everyone doing good with the fill in the blanks? They're not that hard because there's only 10 slides. So, and I made the last two ones. I don't even think you have fill in the blanks on that. All right. So the NC state courts continue. NC district courts hold trials to determine the facts of cases. They're divided into magistrates court, civil court, criminal court, and juvenile court. I don't feel like in this class we might have any crazy questions. Like, a lot of times by now I've gotten like, what happens if I'm speeding and I hit someone and they die and da da da. I mean, usually I get like crazy mess like that, but I haven't gotten anything like that yet. I feel like my B week will get that. There's some kids who will probably ask questions like that. Luke Sherrill will probably ask questions like that. Landon Reynolds, kids like that. They'll ask some weird ones. All right, so trial procedure. So this is how you kind of get to the trial. So you get someone is obviously arrested in a criminal type case. A person who has allegedly committed a felony offense or a serious misdemeanor offense that does not meet the requirements for a person to be released on a signature summons. So the initial bail is set. The magistrate sets an initial bail bond amount in order for the person charged to be released. After the arrest person is taken before a magistrate. Why do we have bail? Why can you get out on bail? Usually. How does our court system work? How does our legal system work? You are what? What's the famous saying? You are proven guilty. That's why you can get out on bail unless you are a flight risk. If you have tons of money and you've been tried for some felony and they know you own your own planes and you have ways to get out of the country, they're probably not going to let you get out because you're a flight risk, and that's all. Arraignment, you're not technically guilty, you're just not allowed to leave. Arraignment or initial hearing, so the charged person is brought before a judge to determine the probable cause and set any bail requirements. So you get more bail requirements after you have that initial hearing. That's going to set up, do you really need to go to a court, and what are all kind of the facts of the case. So then a grand jury, a panel of 18 randomly selected citizens for a trial to determine if probable cause exists for the case to go to trial. This is for a civil case. So this is, a tree falls on my fence and I'm suing my neighbor because he won't pay me for it. Person or entity brings or filing the lawsuit. The defendant person or entity against which the lawsuit is. So this is the person who owned the tree. This is the person who owned the fence. The complaint, the initial pleading by which the lawsuit is begun. So I'm complaining about my fence being destroyed. He's not paying for it. The answer, the response to a civil complaint. Summons, official notice of the lawsuit that is issued by the clerk of court. So the clerk of court then goes and says, hey, you need to come to court. Your neighbor is suing you. Pleadings, paper requesting something or responding to a request that are filed in the case, including the complaint and answer. So moving on, we got that right. So steps to a trial. This is criminal and civil. So jury selection. So voir dire is attorneys for both prosecution, plaintiff, civil are allowed to strike a specific number of jurors without justification. So basically, your attorneys both will kind of work out who is the jury. They have to both agree on it, and they want to make sure that they have jury members who are not going to decide differently. For instance, in those big court cases, for instance, the one I talked about, the Casey Anthony or the Scott, is it Peterman or Peterson? Whatever his name is, they usually, when they're trying to pick the juries on this and for anything, they might ask you, what's your stance on the death penalty? If you say, I'm strong, I'm for the death penalty, or I'm really against the death penalty, I'm completely against the death penalty, you might get taken off. They don't want someone who's going to automatically say he needs the death penalty or have someone who's completely against it. You want someone kind of in the middle of the road, if that makes sense. Not saying you wouldn't be a good jury member, just saying they want, this guy who's the attorney isn't going to want his client to get the death penalty, right? If you're defending the person who's possibly been a murderer, you do not want someone who's going to give your client the death penalty. On the other end, you don't want someone who's completely he should be fine. He should only go to prison for so many years. He shouldn't even get life in prison. You don't want someone like that on the other end. So they're not going to agree on either one of those two different kind of people. They're going to want someone who's middle of the road because they both kind of will be okay with that. So that's part of how they select a jury. Opening statements given at the beginning of the trial sets the basic scene for the jurors by outlining facts and introduce them. The court dispute in the case. We did not see that really in the Gideon movie yesterday, but the cool thing is we did see almost all of these other things. So testimony, declaration by a witness under oath. So a lot of times you'll have the witnesses. A long time ago, that was really all you had. There wasn't a whole lot of things that could be used to show evidence. There wasn't fingerprints in different time periods. But the more time we have more and more evidence now. So items that can corroborate or refute the testimony of other witnesses. Sorry, I can't read sometimes. But you'll learn that as we keep going through these PowerPoints and learn, oh my gosh, my high school teacher doesn't know how to read. How I got in here, I don't know. Closing arguments used to persuade jurors to adopt an interpretation favorable to each side of position. So again, we did see all of this. We saw the witnesses go up, right? We saw Gideon take the stand. We saw the cab driver take the stand. And we came in kind of in the middle where they were asking the old bartender what Gideon had done for him. In a real case, they might would have brought in that, the actual evidence of Gideon owning some keys to that pool room or the bar, basically. They might would have done that. So there's basically that. They did the closing arguments. You saw that the Gideon's attorney got to go first because he was the accused, and then the attorney for the area there, he got to go last because he was the prosecution. So jury instructions. So then after that, the judge gives the instructions to the jury. You need to make this call. You need to make this decision. Then they'll go to a back room, basically somewhere within the courthouse or courtroom, and they'll make a decision. So the jury is charged to find the defendant guilty or not guilty by all 12 members in a criminal case, by the majority of the jurors in a civil trial. So if it's civil, it just has to be a majority. If it's criminal, it has to be all of them, because they want to make sure that you're being found guilty or not guilty without a doubt. If there's one person out of the 12 If it decides you're not guilty and the other 11 people think you're guilty, you're going to be okay. There'll be a mistrial, and then they'll have to basically restart the process in some ways. But we'll go into that more later. But the main thing you need to know is for criminal, all 12 have to make sure they know, or make sure that they decide on the same thing, and then it's just a majority in the civil trial. So your chances in a civil trial are kind of iffy. Then the verdict and sentence. In a criminal trial, the jury must make a decision beyond a reasonable doubt. What I just said. In a civil trial, the jury must make a decision by a preponderance of the evidence. It is sometimes called a judgment in civil trial. So we'll go into more depth later. And I want to talk about a few other things after this. So again, I gave you this diagram here. It's very helpful for understanding how our U.S. federal court system works. It kind of goes more up like that. I don't know why the arrow goes down, but anyway, you've got your original jurisdiction, you've got appellate jurisdiction, and limited original jurisdiction. Basically, they're not going to hear cases about murder in the Supreme Court unless it's being appealed. Does that make sense? Lastly, most of the time it's an appealed court case that you will hear in the Supreme Court. Lastly, here's where it gets a little more confusing, and it's very important to look at this. North Carolina has a little bit different. It makes it easier on the court system, but for the person just looking on for the first time, it's a little confusing. So you've got magistrate's court, and there's criminal and civil for all of these. So magistrate's court, criminal are determine the probable cause for the arrest and issue warrants, accept guilty pleas. So if you want to just go ahead and say, yeah, I sped, or yeah, I parked illegally, you can go ahead and do that. Or you just pay the fine usually before that. But you know, if for some reason you're going to court over it, set conditions of pretrial release in most cases. While in civil, you've got serve a child support, hearing officers, perform marriages, ceremonies, hear small claim cases. This is kind of pretrial stuff. Not a lot of stuff is going on here. It's usually more like free stuff. You've got your district court. So you've got criminal over here. So this is all misdemeanors, except for those attached to a felony. So obviously, if you committed a felony, then you would be up here. But if you're just having a misdemeanor, you're going to be here. Examples are DWI, larceny, everything less than $1,000. Make sure you remember that a felony is anything over $1,000. Civil cases involving less than $25,000. Family law, examples, divorce, custody lawsuits, $10,000 or more, auto crashes. So again, all that other stuff might be handled down here if it doesn't meet these qualifications. Then you're going to Superior Court for all felonies, misdemeanor appealed, examples, murder, robbery, DWI appealed from district court. So also there's appealed cases in this area as well. Civil cases involving $25,000 or more and some other special matters. Examples, $500,000 lawsuit for breach of contract. So if you had a really big contract with somebody here in North Carolina to make you a, for someone to build you a house, and you had all these things, and they signed off that they were going to build you the house with, you know, this kind of flooring and this kind of wood was being used in different areas, and they had this kind of cabinets. You were going to have granite countertops throughout the house. And let's say they didn't provide all of those things. You might would take them to Superior Court if they weren't willing to either refund you or, you know, replace those items. It would depend on the situation, but if they weren't willing to do it, then you might have to take them to Superior Court as long as it's over $25,000. After that, if it needs to be appealed, you're going to NC Court of Appeals, and if it needs to go farther from that, it can go to the NC Supreme Court, just like the United States Supreme Court. So ours is even in North Carolina, it's broken down even more than what the United States federal court system is, because this way the court system can handle things a lot more speedy, because obviously most things when it comes to trials and misdemeanors and civil cases, they're all being held at the state level. They're not being held at that federal level for the most part. So that's why there's multiple different things here, the magistrate's court, the district court, and then the Superior Court before you get into this Court of Appeals. So that's basically all I have to go off of. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to make sure you have that. You should be able to submit these notes now with the link because I changed that. I think that was something on my end from last time. Now I'll leave the lights on. But yeah, just make sure you submit those notes. It's not that big of a deal. I just want to make sure you're following along. Like I said, eventually I might not make you turn them in all the time. And we're going to go over a few things in a few seconds. Go to some water. So a lot of times, just to go more off of, what we were talking about with those other court cases, there's a lot of things that change depending on your court case. For those I keep saying landmark, for those big media-like cases, for instance, like the Casey Anthony, the Scott, let's find out what his name is. Scott, give Scott's a bad name. Peterson, okay. So, right here, this is overturned by California. There you go. So they have overturned his death sentence. And let's read some of this article. So, California Supreme Court on Monday reversed the death sentence. So this got all the way to the California Supreme Court. I don't know how their court system lines up because obviously each state can do how they want with that. But most of them do something similar to the federal court system, like how North Carolina has just the smaller ones at the bottom. But when it comes, they probably have more of a district appellate court and then the Supreme Court. The High Court found that the trial itself was fair and the murder conviction stands. In automatic appeal, which was first filed with the Supreme Court in 2012, the court found that the potential jurors were dismissed erroneously, in part because they expressed general objections to the death penalty on a questionnaire. While a court may dismiss a prospective juror as unqualified to sit on a capital case if the juror's view on capital punishment would substantially impair his or her ability to follow the law. So this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, right? They should have possibly gotten rid of those jurors beforehand if they didn't like what they answered on the questionnaire. Nothing in the questionnaire showed that the dismissed jurors would have been unable to vote for the death penalty if the circumstance warranted, the justice said. The death sentence must be reversed and the people given another opportunity to seek that penalty before properly selected jury if they so choose, the opinion said. The case has been remanded a Stanlis County Superior Court to handle the sentencing. Oh, hey, Mr. Beast. This person who was 7 months pregnant disappeared. This is his wife. From her Modesto home just before Christmas 2002 and was reported. Okay, yeah, so were some of y'all not even born? What year are y'all born? 4. Okay, yeah. So you weren't even born. That would be why you don't know about this. I was 7. Okay, yeah, y'all wouldn't have been born. Anyway, in the early days, I guess I just thought it was more recent than that. In the early days, the mother-in-law searched for Lacey. That's right, it was Lacey Peterson. A woman who had been having an affair with Peterson came forward. In April 2003, Lacey's body and that of her son washed up in San Francisco Bay. Scott Peterson was arrested shortly thereafter. So, yeah, basically this was a big deal. The woman had gone missing. The entire country was kind of in shock of, how she went missing. Things like this happened, but her husband, I think, tried to make out like something else happened. I mean, he was even on the news. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, he had been on the news and everything. I think he'd even been on, like, national TV talking about her disappearance. And it turns out he's actually the one who killed her. So, that being said, this court case was a big deal. The jurors, if I'm not mistaken, weren't even allowed to, like, go home and watch news because they didn't need to watch the court case stuff going on because they are only supposed to go off the facts that they hear in that courtroom, not anything else that they may hear on the news. because obviously, especially even now, which it was going on in 2002 as well, as we can know, CNN, Fox News, all of those different, news media sites can have their bias one way or the other. So they don't want them going and watching any kind of biased news. So that's kind of what happened there. If I'm not mistaken, he was convicted. He was convicted, but if I'm not mistaken, Casey Anthony actually was not. Not now. I don't want Casey Anthony now, and I really don't want the wiki. Let me just do court case. Google's gonna think I'm like a weirdo because I'm searching up murderers. Trial facts. There we go. And I'm not being biased by. I'm going to literally the first link, so no one think that I like CNN. I'm not saying I like CNN. I'm not saying I like Fox News. I'm going to literally the first link that pops up. Okay. So on August 9, 2005, Casey Anthony, 19, gives birth to a daughter. I didn't need all that. So in July 15 of 2008, Casey's mother, Cindy Anthony, reports that Kaylee is missing. Anthony is arrested for child neglect, giving false statements and obstructions. She tells police her daughter vanished after she left her with a babysitter named Zanita Fernandez Gonzalez, who has also disappeared. Officers search Anthony's car, and a cadaver dog picks up the scent of a human decomposition. So authorities say an air sample test from Anthony's car indicate there were human remains in the trunk. A grand jury indicts Anthony on capital murder and other charges. She pleads not guilty. Skeletal remains are found in a wooded area near the Anthony home by a utility worker. Authorities announce the remains have been identified as Kaylee Anthony. Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty, reversing an earlier decision not to pursue capital punishment. The original judge assigned by the case, Stan Strickland, recuses himself and is replaced by Judge Belvin Perry Jr. Jury selection begins. So you can see this takes a while. I mean, the little girl was basically probably murdered somewhere in July of 2008. And because this is such a big court case, we're just selecting the jury here in 2011. It takes a while for these things to go on and happen. You do have the right to a speedy and fair trial, but at the same time, the fair word kind of sometimes will make the speedy process not as speedy. But in some countries, it takes a whole lot longer than just 3 years from there? So yeah, 3 years. Forensic experts testifies that the only plausible explanation for the odor in Anthony's car trunk is the presence of decomposing human body. June 9th of 2011, Anthony becomes ill, and Judge Perry calls the court into recess. So she basically became sick. The prosecution rests. The defense rests. Anthony does not testify. She decides to plead the fifth. So you remember we talked about that on that first day, the Bill of Rights. You cannot take the stand if you don't want to, if you think it would self-incriminate yourself. The 7 women and 5 men on the jury deliberate for 10 hours and 40 minutes before coming back with a verdict of not guilty of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and aggravated manslaughter of a child. Anthony is found guilty of 4 misdemeanor counts of proving false information to the law enforcement. Anthony is sentenced to 4 years in jail with credit for time served. She is also fined $1,000 for each count. Anthony is released from jail in 2011. A report released by Florida's Department of Children and Families concluding that Anthony is responsible for the death of the daughter. The report says the actions or the lack of actions by the alleged perpetrator ultimately resulted in contributed in the death of the child. Judge Perry rules that Anthony owes authority nearly $98,000 for the cost of investigating Kaylee's disappearance. Days after he orders her to pay an additional $119,000 to the police, bringing the total to more than $217,000. That's a lot of money. In an exclusive interview with CNN, Anthony tells host Piers Morgan that she didn't kill Kaylee and says, "I've never been a party girl. I don't drink now. I've probably had a handful of beers since I've been on probation." The caricature of me that is out there, it couldn't be further from the truth. An appeals court throws out 2 of Anthony's convictions for providing false information to law enforcement. The same day as the ruling, Anthony files a Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection. She claims to have almost $800,000 in liabilities, with just $1,000 in assets, including cash on hand and personal property. And that's all we know of her right now. So this one was weird. There's probably a lot of proof that, does anyone remember this one at all? No, y'all would have been really little. I didn't know because it got all the way to 2011. This one was really weird. I think even her own mother at one point was thinking she probably did it. But apparently, the jury decided she wasn't guilty. Most people in the media really thought she was guilty, actually. So it's an interesting storyline. And they had a lot of proof, against her. It's the weird thing to me. I remember watching this, and I remember the stuff about there was definitely a dead body in her car. There's an issue there. Like, regardless, maybe, in all honesty, maybe she didn't kill her daughter. But there's still the issue that there was a dead body at some point in the back of her car. And that was never really addressed afterwards for some reason, after she was found not guilty. So that's weird. It's an interesting take that is something to definitely think about in even recent events of things that have gone on in our country. They went and decided to go after the death penalty. And it is true. You see it in movies, and it is true. Them going after the death penalty may have caused her to get away with this. May have caused her not to be guilty. Maybe she is innocent. I'm not going to say she isn't. But that could cause some issues. I found it interesting with the George Floyd situation going on that they decided to charge him with first-degree murder, because now they're going to have a harder time. If the prosecution really wants to find him guilty, they're going to have a harder time finding him guilty of first-degree murder than they are of second-degree murder. And that's not me. I'm not saying what side of anything I'm on. I'm just giving you the facts. Obviously, it's going to be easier to prove second-degree murder, because second-degree murder is not necessarily, and we're going to get into the charges of murder either the next PowerPoint or the PowerPoint after that. But the thing is, with second-degree murder, it wasn't that he went to kill him. First-degree murder would be that he went out that day and was going to go murder George Floyd. And he could have been. He could have totally, when he heard it was George Floyd, been like, I'm going to go kill him. But is it going to be easy to prove that is in his mind? You can't hardly prove something in someone's mind. They might can do it. If they do it, they're very talented attorneys. But second degree was definitely something provable. You could prove in the moment he killed him. But now there's even stuff on both sides saying he may have not actually killed him. I'm not getting into political debate about it. I'm not getting into all the things that have gone on with it. I'm just giving you some interesting legal facts that go along with it. So, but yeah, just, these are things to think about, especially when we're talking about these things of a trial. When you see things happen on the news, the thing that was important for lawyers and jury members and, prosecutions, it's important for them to think about, how are we going to do this? Is it more important to get that, that first degree murder charge that we want, or is it important that we put this person away? So a lot of times you might see them charge someone with a second degree murder, or they might try to charge them with something else just to put them away. Al Capone is a good example. Al Capone obviously did tons and tons of things that were illegal. He did tons of things. He had people killed. He had, racketeering going on. He had tons of mess that was illegal in the United States. Does anyone know what he went to jail for? Yeah, they got him on tax stuff. So eventually they just decided, we're going to put him away, and we don't know how we're going to do it. They figure out he's avoiding taxes and things like that. I don't know exactly all the things he did, but they got him on tax evasion, I think, was part of it. And like you said, some fraudulent stuff. So basically, they knew he had done all these other things. Everybody knew he had done all these things, but they didn't think they could prove it in a court of law. That's the issue. Where they had that hard, cold evidence of him evading his taxes, him, being fraudulent and stuff. So that's how they put him away. So it's important that we look at, when we're looking at court cases like this, and we're, determining things, we're seeing how, they might not go for what we know. We all may sit here and think, well, she probably murdered her daughter. There's a good chance she killed her daughter. She might not have, but there's a good chance. And maybe if they decided not to go with seeking the death penalty, they could have gotten her in jail at least. It's just speculation. So, same thing with you see all these big name trials. They sometimes go too far trying to get this sentence. And if they would have just backed off a little bit, they probably would have gotten the call. Regardless if you're for the death penalty or if you're not for the death penalty, it's hard to get 12 people to decide that someone needs to be executed. You know what I mean? That's going to be hard to get someone to do. It's easy for a jury to decide this person needs to go to jail for the rest of their life. It's hard for a jury to decide that someone needs to be basically put to death. So there you go. Just some kind of weird but interesting things that are going on right now. This one's not, but the Peterman one was. And it's a pretty big deal because it was such a big name case. So I wanted to go over that with you and bring up the things that are going on right now in your time with the George Floyd case. We might talk about that more going forward if it actually, which y'all, by the time that actually gets to court, y'all probably won't even be in this class. But if there's more stuff that updates, we'll talk about it. We talked about the Brett Kavanaugh stuff in the class before, the hearings were going on during my business law class, so we watched a little bit of that and we talked about it. So I try to keep things that are new. I try to talk about those things that are going on right now in the news with y'all, so we stay relevant. But anyway, that's basically it for the day. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I'm going to end the Zoom meeting. And we've got 40 minutes left. I've done this all day today. I've kind of not timed myself well, but I felt like we get a lot done. So I guess that's okay at the end of the day. Any questions from people online about anything we've gone over or anything? There's really nothing to turn in today. You're really just going over these notes. You do need to try to turn in the notes, but if you have to get them in tomorrow, that's fine. Any questions? Doesn't seem like it. There's nothing in the chat. So I'm going to end the Zoom meeting. So adios, y'all. I'll see y'all later.